Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Rockies Daily. I'm your host, Scott Ayers, and happy Friday. We are on the cusp of the weekend once again, and I just want to quickly say thank you so much for watching, tuning in, and hitting that subscribe button. We're up to 150 subs. Really grateful for all those of you that have watched or shared, hit the like, left a comment whether you loved or you were frustrated by something that I said. It means a ton. Obviously, it's a small channel, but for me, it just means a ton. And as we gear up for Rockies season, I figured what better way to send us into the weekend than kind of going over just maybe biggest things that we're excited about, what we are worried about heading into the season. And I wanted to break it down to try to cover, front office, Warren Schaefer and the coaching staff, and then, of course, the roster and the team. Just because, I think all three are obviously intertwined, and some of what we are looking forward to or having doubts about, they can all be connected, but all hold individual reasons to be excited or to be nervous or whatever those emotions are. And look, I think we can all agree heading into this season, we know this team isn't going to be world beaters. At least that's what it feels like. I Look, I have a confession. I definitely have that dumb peanut brain fan energy. It's like right before a season starts, it just kind of hits me in a wave of like, hey, you never know. Actually, have a good April, and next thing you know, maybe we're playing, maybe we're in the heat of things. But in reality, I think we all have that touch with reality to know this is probably going to be a pretty difficult season. And so let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we're excited about, what we fear. Also, final note, for whatever reason, last episode had a few audio issues. I looked like I was, lip syncing at a concert. I don't like that. We're not about that here at Rockies Daily. So, checking my monitors. I'm looking at all the plugs to make sure that doesn't happen again. But regardless, let's just jump into it. Let's first talk about the front office. And you can read it in the headline there. I am cautiously optimistic about this front office, and they have a lot to prove. And I really, where that optimism comes from is I really thought this was a good building block of an offseason for this team and for this front office. I thought they made a lot of really smart staff hires. They went and got just professionals. They went and got guys who have experienced success, right? Paul DePodesta has had success. Josh Burns has had a ton of success. They get a bunch of guys from the New York Mets organization, which maybe they haven't seen a World Series, but they have had success. And so from that standpoint, that was obviously pretty exciting to see for the Rockies to step out because in the past, it's really always stayed within. You look at like Bill Schmidt, for example, the most recent GM, and that was just internal, and that was a turd sandwich for lack of better terms. And look, I've really liked this front office. They went and made one thing clear: we are going to raise the floor of this team. That 43 wins shouldn't happen again. And we all can recognize that it's probably not a 90-win baseball team, but the moves they've made to go and get a pitching staff and have at least an idea or attempted identity of we want pitchers with, a big arsenal of pitches. We want to get all these different utility players, and some of that will go into coaching and obviously the roster. But, that is something to be optimistic about, is it really feels like not only this year but beyond is laying the groundwork for a foundation, for an identity, and what Rockies baseball will be. And so that to me is really exciting. The flip end is I think we've all been really, really burned by Rockies front offices and the ownership in the past. I mean, really, really burned, right? Like, and it's a slew of different examples. And that's, I think, one of the big fears is while we got a really, really solid sample size of an offseason, it's a small sample size in the grand scheme of things. And we can be happy with free agent signings and say, hey, this was a good offseason for the front office. There's still a lot of work to do and a lot of things where we will see whether it's a strength or a weakness. And what do I mean by that? Well, first, looking at, re-signing guys. And what? That's stupid. No, let's look at the Rockies in the past. You look at a guy like DJ LeMahieu and how they let someone like LeMahieu walk, which made absolutely no sense for a team that wanted to stay competitive. That was a really bad move by a front office. You look at how they have handled making trades, whether it's trading too early, trading too late, or not trading at all. The Nolan Arenado trade is something we always talk about, but holding Trevor Story too long, that was a huge mistake by a front office. Truthfully, holding Kyle Freeland to this point, which I think we all love Kyle Freeland. We're all grateful for Kyle Freeland. He had a lot of value a few years ago. German Marquez had value a few years ago. Granted, Marquez obviously dealt with injuries. Some of that value plummeted, but you have to know when to make a deal. Losing out on Trevor Story and only getting a compensation pick is not good business. The Rockies probably could have gotten more than Sterling Thompson, who could be okay, but that's the kind of pain that the Rockies have felt, is the lack of moves, waiting too long. They waited too long to trade Ryan McMahon, so they didn't get as much as they probably could have if they traded him a season before. And so I would say that's my biggest fear overall with this front office is, what is it going to look like when it comes deadline time and you have guys that aren't part of the big picture? Are you going to move them? Are you going to hold on to them? And are you going to hold on to them but not pay them in the offseason? And so while this spring has felt nice, like or this winter, I should say, heading into spring has felt nice, there's a lot of burn marks, and it will take more than just one offseason for us to feel confident in this front office and ownership group. Because let's face it, a lot of people really, really are not confident in the ownership group, and that stems into the front office. And so I think this is the right group to lead the ship. I really do. In the past, oh my gosh, if this show had started last year and we were talking about Bill Schmidt, I mean, it would be a very, very different conversation. So in that, I'm glad that we're talking about Dave Podesta and Josh Burns and co, because I feel a lot more confident with them. But they are going to have to rebuild a lot of trust, because I think fans are obviously and rightfully frustrated with how this team has been handled for the past 20 years. There's just been so many mistakes, and it's up to this front office, which is a tall task, to rebuild that trust. So that's our front office. Then we talk about, Warren Schaefer and co. And that kind of sounds like a diamond store that you would visit in like downtown Denver. Maybe not downtown Denver. Maybe it's like Greenwood Village or something like that. Schaefer and Co. Go buy yourself a 5-carat ring. Lab cut, of course. We're not a blood diamond company. We're a lab cut company. Regardless, we're getting off track. Let's talk about Warren Schaefer and Co. And look, I'm really excited to see what Warren Schaefer can do with a full season now. An opportunity for a full season with more at his disposal. He's been with this organization for a long time. He was drafted by the Rockies in 2007, joined the staff in the mid 2010s, and then kind of managed at minor league level before joining the major league staff in the 21-22 season. So for me, it's really exciting. One, to see what he's able to do. I want to see what his in-game management looks like now, with more at his disposal. We've talked about AJ Hinch and how he wants to replicate that. Well, what does that look like? And I say more at his disposal, and you can roll your eyes and say, well, how much does he actually have? But there is more. There's more utility pieces. And in that, what does the strategy look like? Because baseball is a game of chess. And you know what? We might not have a bunch of queens and rooks, but you still have pieces that can be at least somewhat successful. So that is both an excitement and a fear. Will Warren Schaefer be able to answer the call? And on top of that, we talk about Alan Leichman and Brett Pill a lot, but I really think it is an exciting time to finally look outside the box. And we talk about it again. We mentioned that things will intertwine, but Alan Leichman and what is his strategy of, going into this year, just trying to think outside the box, which is so refreshing. But we don't know what that looks like yet. And so I'm really curious to see what Leichman has in store for this rotation, for the bullpen. But that's an exciting thing. And again, it's a clear emphasis of some of the ideas because they have a bunch of pitchers with giant arsenals. And Leichman mentioned, it's hard to game plan for. Okay, well, let's see that on paper. And for Brett Pill, he's kind of the swing whisperer. He can work with each individual player. Okay, well, how is he going to help develop these guys? And that I think is obviously a fear, is if this team lacks development, we are in for a world of hurt. And the development obviously happens with the players, but at this stage with the coaching staff, how are they developing? Obviously not only with guys at the major league level, we're talking about guys in triple, double, single A. Development is going to be really key, and that is obviously a fear of mine, not because I don't think it's not possible, but more so if it doesn't work, what kind of hole will the Rockies be in? Because you're the worst team in baseball. You were the worst team in baseball. 0-0 now. Tied for the best record in baseball right now, folks. Don't forget that. If people say we're the worst team in baseball, hey, what's your record? Oh, you're 0-0? Same with us. That's weird. That's Rockies baseball, baby. Regardless, besides the point, if you struggle to develop with the lack of assets right now that the Rockies have, you're going to have to find other ways to get good. You will have to find guys in free agency that can blossom in Colorado. So that's both a concern and an excitement. Kind of unfair of me, but I don't care. It's my show. A concern and an excitement of just this idea of development and what some of these guys can become. And how can you just toss these narratives to the wayside, right? Like about guys like Charlie Condon that we've mentioned in past shows where CBS doesn't believe in him in terms of his swing or anything like that, right? So how do you turn those heads? Regardless, I'm really excited. I'm excited to see what Schaefer has in store with more at his disposal. And ultimately, what these new guys on the staff like Leichman and Pill can bring to an organization that just needs a breath of fresh air. I think that's exactly what Pill and Leichman are. And then finally, let's talk about the roster. Let's talk about a roster that, I mean, there's some holes. If we were a wooden ship, we've been hit by a few cannonballs, and we've got some water getting into the ship. And the cannonballs are I mean, they're big. They're big holes. But regardless, there's still things to be excited about. And I know broad scale, we talk about development of players. One guy in particular that I'm really excited for is Chase Dollander. He went into the offseason looking like this was at the end of the 25 season, but after the 25 season, it was looking like, oh, hey, I'm going to probably be the number 2 or number 3 guy in this rotation. Rockies make a slew of moves to get different starting pitching, and all of a sudden he's like the number 5 or number 6 guy. I think him and Felton are going to be competing for that last, rotation spot to start the year. And while that can be slightly concerning if he doesn't get the number 5 spot, if he can, I think it's a really exciting opportunity where there's a little less pressure because you're not, the number 2 guy vying for the number 1 spot. Instead, I really hope he can get to that number 5 spot because I have a lot of expectations in someone like this. High velocity. He said he's been working in this offseason to really be able to pitch at Coors Field. It goes hand in hand with being able to work with Alan Leichman and developing him into the ace of the Colorado Rockies. That's a big deal if the Rockies can develop a guy into being a certified ace. And an ace for the Rockies looks different than anywhere else just because of where you're having to pitch. But if he can be not only a consistent starter, but a guy by the end of 26 is a clear number 2 or even a number 1, that's a big deal for the Rockies and the development and what they do moving forward. That gives a lot of confidence into a roster that needs it. Overall, this starting rotation on paper looks a lot better. I mean, it's still not going to wow you. You're still going to have games where that's the face you'll make after probably like the 3rd or 4th inning, and that's okay because I think overall you've got just a lot more experience. You've got inning eaters. You've got guys that, yes, you're not going to see the same development for some of these younger starting pitchers, but you need to see a better product on the field, and that's what this front office did. They raised the floor, and so the floor has been raised. Now, obviously, the concerns have been noted kind of throughout the last month of the show, but there are just concerns kind of all over this roster. They signed a couple of veteran infielders and traded for, but the concern is, are they going to be productive? Castro was not productive last year. Julian, who, we talked in just a previous show, has been downright like very, very bad. And, if they can't be productive, that goes in hand with, what Warren Schaefer wants to do of, being able to use these different utility pieces. And so those are concerns that the guys that they brought in who are meant to raise the floor don't raise the floor. And the floor continues to stay at the bottom of a pit. And that can feel like a real scenario and real world type of thing. So for the Rockies, how do you ensure that floor continues to be raised? But, the hope is for 26 and heading into the future of 27, you also want that ceiling to be raised as well, because right now the ceiling isn't very high. It's a bit of a troll hole of a building where while the floor is slightly higher, the ceiling is low compared to a lot of teams at the major league level. So that is also an excitement, though. I'm really excited for Brenton Doyle. I really want to see him have a bounce back year this year. I want to see Tovar continue to develop, and I want to see Hunter Goodman build on what was an amazing 2025. And so for the roster, you can pick and choose individual players because ultimately development will be really crucial this season. And that's crucial for, obviously, Warren Schaefer and company. That's crucial for the front office and what they want to do. And, of course, crucial for the on-field play of the Colorado Rockies. But overall, I would say the thing I'm most worried about is just in general of this roster. I'm also kind of excited, though. Like, I know they're not going to be the best, but it's just like we're at this point of the year where I just want to see them play. And I want to see what is in the tank for this starting pitching unit that, I mean, if you go online, there's some criticisms. So what will they be able to do? Because it's just a lot up in the air. But man, baseball is back, and hopefully this is a building block year for the Colorado Rockies, and that's the overall excitement. how can the Rockies build on 2026 to make 27, 28, and 29 seasons where now they're a competitive team, where they're making playoff pushes, where they're competing for a division, right? Like, those are all things that the Rockies should hope for, should push for, and are a possibility if done correctly. But we'll just have to wait and see. Spring training is here. Players have reported, and soon enough, we're going to get some action. So, anyways, I hope you enjoyed the show. Leave a comment down below. If it's Scott, you idiot, that isn't something you should be excited about. Or it's the alternate. Scott, you're the smartest guy I know. Great idea. Regardless of what that is, we'd love to hear your thought. Leave a like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Please share with friends, family. If you didn't like the show, share with your enemies because they might like the show. Regardless, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you on Monday.